Welcome back to Vuln Vibes. Today, we're diving straight into something pretty critical that just surfaced.
Yeah, a big one just dropped
Is SQL injection vulnerability, right?
in ADOb.
That's the one. Affecting the PHP library ADOb, which is incredibly widespread. Something like, what, 2.8 million installations?
Huge footprint.
Yep.
So we're talking CVE-2025-46337 today.
Yep, and it scored CVSS 10.0, maximum severity. It's specifically in the PostgreSQL driver part of ADOb.
Right, the inserted method I saw.
Exactly that method.
Okay, so a 10.0 score. That really tells you the potential impact. Our goal today is basically to unpack this, understand how it works, and what you need to do about it.
Absolutely. Let's get right into the technical side.
So where does the flaw actually lie? You mentioned port inserted.
Yeah, so the core of the problem is within that specific method in ADOb's PostgreSQL driver. The issue is essentially inadequate handling of a query parameter.
Okay, inadequate handling, meaning what exactly? Like escaping? Precisely. It's about insufficient escaping of the field name parameter within that function.
Ah, okay. So if user input gets into that field name parameter.
That's the crux of it. If user-supplied data, data that isn't trusted, gets past this field name without being properly sanitized first.
Then an attacker can potentially manipulate the SQL query that gets built.
Exactly. They can inject their own SQL commands because the library isn't correctly escaping that specific piece of data.
And this isn't just one obscure version of the driver.
No, unfortunately not. It affects quite a few of the PostgreSQL drivers within ADOb. We're talking Postgres 64, Postgres 7, Postgres 8, and Postgres 9.
So pretty broad range.
Yeah.
Covers a lot of potential setups, legacy, and maybe even current ones.
Definitely broadens the potential impact, yeah.
Okay, so we understand the mechanism now, improper escaping in budget inserted on the field name. How would an attacker actually use this? What's the scenario?
Well, the most likely way this gets exploited is when an application takes input directly from a user. Think like data from an HTTP request parameter, maybe a form submission.
Right, untrusted input.
Untrusted input, exactly. And if that input is passed directly as the field name argument to this vulnerable shish-inserted method, well, game over potentially.
Because there's no validation or escaping happening where there should be.
Correct. The attacker's crafted input, potentially containing malicious SQL, just gets inserted into the query structure.
And the consequences. If they pull this off successfully.
It really depends on the database permissions the web application is running with, but worst case scenario.
Let me guess. Full database control.
Pretty much. You could be looking at unauthorized data access, stealing sensitive information, modifying or deleting data.
Ouch.
And maybe even remote code execution on the database server itself if the configuration permissions allow for it. It's really bad.
Yeah, CVSS 10.0 definitely reflects that potential. Okay, the crucial part then. Is there a fix?
Thankfully, yes. The ADOb team has patched this. The vulnerability is fixed in ADOb version 5.22.9.
5.22.9.
Got it. And the specific fix is in commit 1111076, if you want to look at the code change. The strong recommendation is obviously upgrade immediately if you're using ADOb with PostgreSQL.
Okay, immediate upgrade. But what if, for some reason, someone can't patch right away? Any temporary workarounds?
There are. The main workaround is to be extremely careful about what data gets passed to that field name parameter.
So only pass trusted control data, like hard-coded strings or internally generated values.
Exactly. Don't let user input anywhere near it if you haven't upgraded. Or alternatively, you could manually sanitize any potentially unsafe input using PostgreSQL's own peak escape identifier function before.
Before passing it to ADOb's inserted.
Correct. That ensures it's properly escaped before the vulnerable function sees it. But patching is really the way to go.
Right. The workaround is just that, a temporary measure. So the big takeaway here seems to be the constant need for vigilance, doesn't it?
Absolutely. This vulnerability in such a widely used library really underscores how critical secure coding practices are and how vital timely patching is.
A flaw like this, with a 10.0 score, sitting in potentially millions of applications. It's a serious risk.
It really is. The potential for full database compromise is it's a stark reminder for everyone running applications using ADOd with PostgreSQL.
So for everyone listening, the call to action is clear. Check your systems. If you're using ADOd and PostgreSQL, you need to investigate this now.
And apply that patch, version 5.22.9, or implement the workaround very carefully, now that this is public knowledge.
Attackers won't wait. They'll be scanning for vulnerable instances. Prompt action is essential.
Definitely. It just highlights, again, that cybersecurity isn't a destination. It's an ongoing process. Constant vigilance is key.
Well said. A
Yep.
critical reminder indeed.
Oh.
Thanks for breaking that down.
No problem. Important one to cover.